Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. We are now into the last run, into the penultimate session, which I believe is going to be a very exciting one. So we had some wonderful session over the last 2 days, which essentially talked every aspect about printing and packaging industry, right from strategy that needs to be adopted, during this, I would say, very, very uncertain times, to looking at various kind of opportunities, what is trending in terms of the industry, in consumer behavior. We looked at how design and innovation is playing a major role in this industry. And it's very appropriate that we are having this session. Coincidentally, it's basically is going to put together the entire discussion points over the last 2 days into a space which I believe is very critical for us, especially in India. And it's the first time that we are having an all-India panel, only India panel. And I'll basically introduce the panel to you in a short while. But before that, let me give you a quick overview about the topic. So the topic is essentially on the opportunities and challenges facing the small and medium enterprise. And when we look into the printing and packaging industry, it's a very, very heavily SME-dominated industry sector. I do not know the real split, but I won't be surprised if over 90% of the companies in this industry are SMEs, especially in India. And there are various kind of opportunities and challenges that are being faced like any other normal times. And even during this COVID times, there has been specific challenges and opportunities. Now, to discuss that, we have a very, very, interesting panel, which is going to be moderated by Mr. Jacob George, who is the Director Marketing of Press Idea, which is a printing and packaging publication. A very good friend of mine. Welcome, Jacob. Good to see you.
Thank you, Pankaj. A pleasure to be here.
I also have Ajay Agarwal, industry veteran. He's been in the print and packaging space for now maybe over 20 years. He is the managing director and CEO of Insight Communication, which is India's one of the largest distribution and solution provider for the print and packaging industry. Welcome, Ajay. Good to see you. Hope everything is fine.
I look forward to this session.
Yeah, and then I have Mohit Sharma, who has been in the brand space for many years, has worked with a lot of iconic brands, in variety of categories, starting from telecom, FMCG, travel services, and he will talk about himself a bit more. Welcome, Mohit. Good to see you.
Thanks, Pankaj, for a great introduction. Actually.
And last but not the least, Satyagir Rastogi, who is, I would say, a college mate. We were in college together from almost 30 years back. We studied together in Calicut. He, after passing out his engineering, he joined the public sector, and he is now a general manager with SIDBI, which is a lead bank for the SME industry. And I thought having him here going to give a different perspective as to how different kind of stakeholders in the industry can avail some of the wonderful schemes and policies that SIDBI does for the SME sector as a whole. And I'm sure he can throw his light on the print and packaging world. So with that few words, I hand it over to Jacob to introduce the topic and take it over. And I will join you back towards the end to manage and moderate the Q&A session. Thank you, and have a great session.
Thank you. Thank you, Pankaj. A pleasure to be on board with these personalities of the industry right now. We actually today would be discussing about the perspective of the small and medium and as well as field. The industry, as we say, is a growth industry as far as packaging is concerned, and packaging obviously involves printing as well. I'm not at the present moment of time going to get into the argument of having the printing commercial space going down, packaging going up. Let us consider print and packaging to be one single field. And our point of most important discussion that we need to do today is to find as to how the SMEs are performing and how exactly can they be leveraged in a way so that they are sustainable. Just to give you a small, very small statistics, it is considered and known that 8% of the GDP of our country is being furnished and provided by these so-called MSME. 45% of the manufacturing output and 40% of the export too is being done by this particular group of industries, which we call it as the MSME. In addition to that, there is an employment level of 60 million people they employ. Such a big strata of the industry can never be called as small, but the name, of course, is small. Just to give you an idea of what exactly this SME is based basically on the investment that they make. For example, the small group in the SME will be having a approximate investment between 25 and 5 crores. The micro will carry about less than 25 lakhs and the medium about 5 to 10 crores. That's how it comprises the MSME. Now, there are many problems and challenges, of course, are there, but there are solutions to each and every challenge. We Indians are really good at it, and we will always be able to do the best out of it. The interesting thing about the panel that we have today is basically start with is that we for the SME have a financer from SIDBI, have a manufacturing machine supplier from the industry for the industry, and then the product that a printer makes can be sold by a marketing guy who is also on the panel. So to make them clear once again, Satyaki Rastogi ji is from SIDBI, Ajay Agarwal ji is from Insight, and Mohit ji is from the marketing, basically sales and marketing. Would you probably want to introduce yourself first before we start, or is it how would you like to go, Ajay ji?
Whichever way.
Yes, then just a small introduction and then let's take it forward.
Okay, so myself, I'm Ajay Agarwal from Insight Communications. We are in the business of selling printing solutions for last almost 30 years now. And we basically represent all the best brands world over and have been supplying one of the premium solutions across multiple printing solutions in the country. We have a pan-India network and we have a team of more than 100 people that takes care of this particular division. So that's me, perhaps.
Thank you. Rastogi ji?
Yeah, thank you. It's been nice to be here. But I'm Satyaki Rastogi, General Manager at SIDBI. SIDBI is the apex bank for financing of micro and small and medium enterprises. It's not only for financing, but for promotion and development. So SIDBI has a lot of activities which are its major activities. I would say the USP is regarding the policy advocacy that we do for MSMEs. Financing is just a very small part, especially the direct financing, because we are mainly a refinancing institution where we are financing banks and other intermediaries who are into the field of financing. I have been in the bank for last 26 years and have grown through the ranks here. So it's very nice to be here. We'll discuss the issues that are involved. I would primarily be focusing on what solutions that we are offering for the MSMEs.
Wonderful. Excellent. Thank you, Satyaki ji. Mohit, could you give a small brief one, please?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, I'm Mohit Sharma. I have been into marketing space for the last 23 years. I started my career with FMCG, with Pepsi, and moved into telecom. Almost those were the early years of telecom actually, in 99, 2000 actually, and did almost a stint of a decade in telecom with Hutch, Vodafone, Aircel, all the leading brands. Right from the very nascent level itself, moved into IT with Samsung, Dell, Logitech, and also did a short stint in advertising and retail in retail, I was heading the brand for Reliance Digital. So coincidentally, I also had an opportunity to work on private label brands. So we all have worked on large brands which are like stature brands, but I've also had a chance of creating brands from a very niche level itself, like Reliance Digital. We plan to launch the private label brands into the country in those days, 2005 2006 actually, where Kishore Biani used to have Choreo as a brand. So I had a privilege of working very closely with Walmart's key people actually, who were hired by Reliance as consultants, uh, primarily from a packaging and printing standpoint to launch the brands, because they were working with international suppliers. So I hope I will be able to contribute to the conversation. Yeah.
Oh, indeed, yes, undoubtedly. Okay, now let's get on to the point of what the SMEs constitute in this industry called print and packaging. According to the data that I have got from resources which could be called as reliable, 75% to 80% of printing packaging units in India come under the MSME umbrella, which means around it's only 20 to 25% which are the big brothers. And the big brothers today are getting into the action of mergers and acquisition. Just to name a few, you would probably be knowing that Plus Paper food pack, which used to be an independent identity in itself, was taken over by Nippon Paper in India. Similarly, Kamsri, it was a pharma packaging company which was taken over by Essentra PLC. Packaging India in due course was taken by Amcor, Positive Packaging by Huhtamaki, Janus Packaging by Edelman, Parikh Packaging by Constantia, WebTech by Huhtamaki once again, and Interlabels by Scanum recently. What I intend to say is the SME is the 75 to 80% are still trying to survive in their own typical way. Now, coming over to the point of discussion, what I feel is the macroeconomic challenges, which includes the GDP going down for whatever reasons, and then adding on and piling to it is the COVID-19 pandemic, which has again affected the whole array of industry, including the SME. Now what we have to do and think about is what can be done about it. What exactly are the steps that we can take so as to give the leverage to the SMEs to stand on their own feet once again? I'm not saying that everything has gone down the drain, but then difficulties are there. Majority during the pandemic, it was also heard that certain printing units were doing very good, and that's true because those supplying to the essential services like pharma, all the printers were busy, but that's also a very small proportion of the entire industry. So let's start with Mr. Ajay Agarwal. Sir, could you please give your idea as to what can be done under these circumstances, wherein there is a pain point amongst the MSME, sir? Please go ahead.
So, George, what I will start with is trying to give a background of where we are today as a country, as an economy. Because unless we are all clear where we stand, we will not be able to take the right decisions. Okay. So let's start with a situation where which is staring in front of us, which is minus 23.9% GDP. And what should we do about this? According to me, one need not be pessimistic at all. Let's look at some situations which have happened, which are happening, and which should give a lot of hope to all the Indians and all the SMEs who are right now listening to the show. If you see, India's relief package of 20 lakh crores, which was announced, was one of the most wonderfully articulated package announced across the world. Okay, it followed a wonderful Chanakya Niti formula, while we have heard in US and in other countries, doles being given to people, to households, $6,000 or $600 or whatever were given to each and every household, and a lot of currency was printed. India did not resort to any of such things. Okay, India followed a model of, in Hindi it's called Dan and Anudan. Anudan is loan. So somebody who is at a very weak level of economic strata was given 5 kgs of food grains, stuff like that, so they don't go hungry. And a huge SME sector was given almost 18 lakh crores of loans. Okay, uh, which means that their cash flows are going to fall in place, and over a period of time they should be able to repay it. Some of it can also go bad, but still it is much lesser than just printing money and throwing it into the economy, right? So according to me, our finance minister and prime minister did an extremely good job in giving the relief package. That's number one. And we may not see this today, but over a period of time, we will see that our fiscal deficit is still under control. Our inflation is still under control, and we will come back to normal because we have not kind of just blown away the money, right? The government has been extremely fiscally prudent. Prudent. Let's look at the other point. Just about 30, 40 years ago, when we were young, every family member who was earning was taking care of 7 to 8 non-earning members. Okay, it's changed totally nowadays. Perhaps today the ratio is 1:1 or 1:2. Right? This has given a lot of strength to the economy in the country. 30 years ago, there was, when one earning member was taking care of 8 non-earning members, he could only take care of the necessities. But now when the ratio is improved to 1:3, things have changed. People are now aspiring to buy luxury stuff. Our demographic is also in our favor. Is also in our favor. We all know about this, and the India's demography is immensely, right? Moving forward, we have seen a situation where now the new Cold War is going to be against China, right? China on one side, and US and Australia and Japan and India and Europe are on one side. This is also going to make a huge difference to India's economy. I'm already seeing this happening with some of my customers who are primarily into textile printing, and there have been a dearth of inquiries that they have got from export customers, and they want to shift their bases from China into India. The issue, which Pankaj also mentioned in his opening remarks, is that our industry is full of SMEs, and they still have a fear in their mind, and they are not willing to innovate and not willing to kind of jump ahead and take some bold decisions. But I'm sure over a period of time things will change, and we will become a huge export-oriented economy, and we will become parallel to China very, very soon. So according to me, there is absolutely no reason anybody should be pessimistic. One should use this time to survive. No two ways about it. The times are difficult. You cannot thrive unless you have survived this period. In the initial phases, we were saying it would be 3 months. Now it's already 6 months. And in some states like Maharashtra, it can be 9 months. And by the time we are kind of back to normal with the vaccine in place, it will be almost a year. So no two ways, this year is going to be a tough year. And the only requirement for every printer, every SME is to survive, ensure his cash flow is managed. Okay, but once he comes out of this, there's a huge opportunity lying in front of us. So on a macroeconomic front, I am extremely, extremely bullish. Okay, it's just a phase that one has to cross, and then the sun rises the first in the East kind of a scenario. We will see the sun rising on India very, very quickly.
Thank you very much, Ajay. Which in short, I would say that what you want to say is basically the end of the tunnel is bright. So
Absolutely.
let's wear a cap so that we don't get blinded.
Yes. So now, after having said this, all the SMEs who are listening to this particular show, the first thing that I would have to tell them is the crisis is not over. We have seen the first phase of the crisis, and we will see the next phase of crisis coming soon. Okay, we kind of went through the first 3 months doing nothing. Perhaps most of the people revived in July and August and September, but still the economy is in a bad shape. The consumption, the private consumption is extremely bad. Government does not have the money to spend. Even though they want to spend, they can spend a lot of money on infrastructure, but any infrastructure projects they have a gestation period before the money starts to flow into the economy. So it will take at least 3 to 6 to 9 months before whatever money the government is going to spend on the infrastructure will come into the economy. The private investment and the private consumption has also gone down. People today are not spending money, so the circulation in the economy is extremely, extremely weak. And the first phase of comfort that we are right now getting after 3-4 months of lockdown is a temporary phase. There is going to be another round of slowdown around the corner. So you have to survive that phase as well. And then thereafter, take it further. So for now, survive, but also start planning for the future. As Pankaj mentioned in his opening remarks, when you're planning for the future, I'll just give you an example. We deal with a lot of commercial printers. You also mentioned about them. And they are going through a tough time, right? Commercial printing is going to change. It is not going to die. Commercial printing will move from analog printing printing technologies to digital. There is the amount of digital data which is getting, which is being created on a daily basis is exponentially high from what it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, right? But what will happen is commercial printers will have to innovate. They will have to become digital. Today, a 5-year-old child is, getting used to Zoom calls and he's going digital. And if the commercial printers don't realize this, they will have times. But if they realize this, they can transform themselves into a much more value-added solution provider. And
totally agreed, sir. Totally agreed. Your point of view is absolutely in the positive frame of mind. The only thing for the printer to presently look into as per you is to sustain the period which you're talking about, which is long. And to sustain, yes, that's the main thing. Any point on this, Satyaki ji?
Yeah, I think I agree with Ajay for whatever he has said. We have gone through a very long phase right now due to the pandemic, and we had actually also entered into a slowdown phase prior to that also in the economy. But after the lockdown has ended, I mean, it's not really actually ended, partially lockdowns continue to be in places there. What the lockdown has done is broken the supply chains. The supply chains will take some time to reconnect, get smoothen, And because of that migration of workers, that has been also a very important thing, workers to return back. Still many of them are, while some of them have returned back, many of them are still skeptical of coming back due to the pandemic, because as Ajay said, we are still continuing in the phase of increasing number of infections, and people are very skeptical about it. So migration of worker is one of the important things. Supply chains are broken, but still we can see, as a financier, as a banker, I can see a lot of green shoots. I have seen, we have in the last 1.5 months seen a growing interest in people coming back to manufacturing. And that is something that gives me hope. Although it is not, I would say, the growth graph or the kind of uh, vibrancy that we had seen earlier, that is yet to come. But there is a lot of positivity around. People are going into making investments, and the government has also made a lot of efforts in helping the MSMEs by giving moratorium up for a 6-month period, both on the interest and the principal, and still opening a window of further restructuring of loans of MSMEs without changing their asset classification, without classifying them as NPAs. So
Yes.
these are opportunities available where the government is doing its bit. And I actually agree with what Ajay said, the Dan and the Anudan part that he said. It was very good because the government has taken a very pragmatic way of handling this part of the helping the poor and also helping the industry in that. So I think in my view, the macro, there are green shoots, there are things, but the times of distress will take some more time to end. So it's not going to end in another 3 to 6 months time. It may probably take a little bit of a quarter or two more.
So according to you, it is more of a microeconomic challenge, which if withstood by the SMEs would get on to the macroeconomic opportunities. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, and I would also add that MSMEs are the backbone of the economy.
Absolutely, there is no doubt about it, sir.
Yeah. So
What do you? Yeah,
please give.
yeah. Mohit, what do you think about this from a perspective of maybe not the SMEs per se, but an observer from outside the MSME sector?
I would like to touch on few points, and I think then we can actually all connect on those points. One is in terms of, as Ajay has mentioned, where are we? I think it's very important question for us to actually address. Where are we? One is definitely from a country standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint, and another is from a consumer standpoint. I think from a marketeer standpoint, I always look at the consumer first. And I look at the other aspects later, because in a country like India, which is totally driven by population and a younger audience, I think consumer is a very shiny side of our economy, actually. So a younger economy is all about aspiration, is all about looking at a positive side of things, actually. I personally think consumption is a function of an emotion. Consumption is never a function of what you have. Consumption is a function of in terms of how you foresee your future. So if you foresee your future as a bright thing, the consumption pattern actually increases, and this is being very prevalent. It's a consumer insight you can see across. Now, as we see that because of markets being very gloomy, and there are not straight directions, or there are not clear-cut policies which people are actually looking at, that they can feel confident, yes, things will actually shape up. There are I must say, there are no what you call methodical phases that people can see, okay, if the economy will revive, this is how the economy will revive. And there is a lot of, I must say, even though people are trying to be positive, but they are still pretty much deluded in terms of whether it is 3 months or 6 months. It's more of a guesstimate. Nobody has a very clear-cut answer in terms of how much time will it come. It will take for the economy to revive. On the other side, if you look at from a consumer demand perspective, what has come out very starkingly in the last 3 months, and for me as a marketer also, it was a lot of learning. Things like consumer durables really spiked up big time actually on e-commerce actually. So what has happened is people spending a lot of time at home pushed them, you know, to look at other latent needs which were technically no needs, when they were actually out of home and they were working, they were, really busy. So in the last 3 months, since there was a huge workforce which was actually within the four walls, so they finally found a lot of areas of home improvement. So home improvement led to a very high spike in the consumer durables, right from microwave to televisions to dishwasher to robo, vacuum cleaners. So you will be surprised when you look at the data, and I'm talking about data which is real data, right? I'm not talking about, something which is we are all guesstimating actually. So that's one aspect. Another is automobile itself. I'm talking about automobile more from an entry level segment. What has happened is the push has been on the in a what you call a -1 category, which means if you are planning to buy a vehicle of 20 lakhs, maybe now your budget has suddenly become 15 lakhs. If you are planning to buy 15 lakhs, now your budget has become 12 lakhs or 10 lakhs. So it's like a -1 segment which has actually happened. Because of that, what has happened is the demand has not shrunk, but the demand has shifted actually, and the good part is that people have not deferred their consumption. They have taken decisions of consumption. But as Ajay has mentioned, is the next 3 months or 6 months is extremely vital, because this all happened because of certain parameters which we never guesstimated. Like, how will people behave when they remain at their homes for more than 2 months, for 3 months? This is something which no marketeer can actually forecast actually. So there have been a lot of learnings, but what has also happened is the economic cycle, the consumption economic cycle has actually jumped almost 5 years or 10 years, I think so. The way the consumers have started behaving, the penetration of e-commerce from suppose, just to take an example like grocery as an example, right? So which could have taken another 3 years or 5 years for a grocery segment to reach from a penetration standpoint, it happened in 3 months per se. Levers would have, actually planned a major investment on e-commerce maybe after 2 years or 3 years of spends. Maybe they are now relooking at it, So you will see a lot of what you call restructuring happening in terms of spends, in terms of priorities. I think reframing of priorities will actually happen in the next 3 to 6 months. That is one thing is for sure, because people will see something which they have not seen in the past, because otherwise we were looking in more from a quarter over quarter, year over year kind of a linear growth. And suddenly, there have been certain categories which are not existent, they have come up. There have been certain categories which were actually growing at a very fast pace. There have been a sudden sluggish demand which has happened. But the net result is, I must say, what we are coming back from a packaging standpoint, I think what it requires is, I think, three aspects. Number one, because I'm talking it more from a India and the neighboring countries perspective. Because when you look at logistics, when you look at production, when you look at other opportunities available in other countries, you have to calibrate yourself as an economy. So I will see, if you look at Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, and I'm not even touching, economies like Hong Kong, or for that matter, Taiwan. I'm not even going that side actually. I'm even just talking about Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Vietnam. These countries are kind of, I must say, exponential growth which has happened in certain categories, especially from a production standpoint, is phenomenal. There have been a lot of good work which has happened in terms of scaling up their infrastructure. That is for sure. They are also, kind of equipping themselves from a design standpoint. India as a country, from innovation and design, I don't think so. We are there actually when it comes to competing on an international front. And even from a home consumption standpoint, what has happened is consumer has got exposed because of internet economy. Actually, the aspiration, their benchmarking is very much different. Today, consumer who is living in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities is very well versed in terms of what is happening in the Western world, actually, just because of the internet economy. I have seen, towns like with a population of 10 lakhs or 12 lakhs, I'm talking about a middle class kind of a segment where, the younger generation, they are aware of what is the difference between Amazon.in and Amazon.com from a product portfolio standpoint. They talk about, these are the kind of promotions which are running in US, and they are actually talking about that you can actually buy it from eBay. So what is happening is you have to put the consumer aspiration in one side, and you have to look at, and thereby the home consumption demand requirement. And where are we from an innovation standpoint, from a design standpoint, and above all, from a process standpoint. We have processes which will actually enable the MSMEs to reduce the cost, still innovate, make it sustainable, and at the same time have a cutting edge design and still make profit out of it. And they should actually have a profit to reinvest in terms of cutting edge technology, machinery, and also bringing in the sustainability aspect from an environmental issues also, because the consumers are also getting exposed. I think there is no clear-cut answer, but I think we really need to ponder on these aspects and then see our future, which will help us in terms of prioritizing in the right way, rather than actually being fearful in the present scenario.
You also have come to the conclusion that it is just